You want to write your DevForce entity model using Entity Framework Code First? I'll show you how. Hi, I'm Ward Bell, VP of Technology at IdeaBlade, here with an introductory walkthrough of DevForce Code First. You can play along and get more detail by following the link on your screen. Now we're using the Code First preview for this demonstration. The preview shipped with DevForce Release 6.1.2. It's not fully baked, so experiment with it, enjoy it, but please don't put your application into production. Part 1 covers the first iteration, building a simple entity model and a UI to show it. It parallels the walkthrough published by the Microsoft Entity Framework team, so if you know that one, you'll have no trouble following along. We'll start from File, New, and generate a DevForce WPF skeleton that will become a WPF console to display the application's activity. We'll create two model classes using the Code First style. We'll add a custom entity framework DbContext. We'll tell DevForce to build the model as a Code First model by adding a .cf marker file. Then we'll add a custom entity manager. It's not required, but it's really handy, and as a regular DevForce developer, you're used to having one. And then finally, we'll show that we can query and save with our new Code First model. Let's get started. From a clean slate, we pick File, New Project. We pick the DevForce 2010 WPF template, call it Code First Walk, and let it generate the skeleton. Let's add a new item. It'll be a class. We'll call it Model. For the demo, we'll keep our entity classes in one file. So we'll blow this stuff away, and I'll paste in the two POCO entity classes, Category and Product. We're running the DevForce 6.1.2 preview, which isn't ready for POCO Code First. We'll be able to write POCOs in the next version, but for now, we have to follow the 6.1.2 rules. First, entities have to derive from the DevForce base entity class. We need to add the using for that. And we'll make product inherit from entity 2. Second, we'll comment out the properties because we can't write them this way yet. Instead, I'll use a code snippet to rewrite the first property, which is an int, and it's the category ID. All DevForce Code First properties follow the pattern you see here. The get and the set delegate to getValue and setValue methods in the DevForce entity base class. It's noisy, but it's consistent, and it will go away in the near future, so bear with us. I got this property code snippet, and 5 others, from the DevForce Resource Center, which explains them, how to use them, and how to install them. We'll use the CF prop snippet again for the string name property. The last category property is a list navigation. I'm using the CF nav snippet, and then it returns the list of products in the category. Now we'll do product. I'll paste in the first 2 properties to save time. We use the cref snippet for reference navigation properties like category. It generates 2 closely related properties. The category navigation, that gives us the product's category object, and the category ID, which is the foreign key property with the ID of the category. You need both the foreign key and the navigation property in this case. We're going to add a new class file. Call it product DbContext. Get rid of the junk at the top that we don't need. This will inherit from EF Code First's DbContext base class, which we don't have a reference to yet, so we've got to go add the reference. And we'll search for the word Entity Framework. You could do this with NuGet, by the way, which would also install EF Code First. Okay, we got it. Now we're going to add the using. Okay. So we'll just add DB sets for our 2 entities using our CF DB set code snippet. DB sets are straight out of the EF Code First playbook. You know, the custom DbContext is essential for certain kinds of configurations that we'll be doing in the future, but this is all we need to do right now. We have to tell DevForce to build the project as a Code First project. We do that by adding a new item. It's a DevForce item. It's the Code First marker file. The name really doesn't matter, but the file matters. It's just a text file that explains its importance as a marker because it has a side effect when we build, which we'll do now. The build succeeded. Notice that it generated an IBMMX DevForce entity metadata file, an embedded resource of the project. This XML file is required on both client and server, and it has the same root name as the DbContext. Now, during the build, Entity Framework generated a database to go with our entity classes, and we can explore it as we're doing now. There's category ID. Notice the name of the database. It matches the namespace and name of our DbContext. We don't have to add a custom entity manager, but seasoned DevForce developers like its convenience. So we'll add a new class, call it Product Entities, blow away the junk at the top. Actually, we won't use the class definition either. We'll use the CF Entity Manager code snippet to generate the boilerplate constructors. Notice it propagated the product entity's name to all the constructors. Then we fill in the entity query properties for each entity, which is the real reason we're writing this class. There's categories. And we can use the CFEQ snippet for the second one, products. Ready for a little UI to test this puppy? Let's open the main window XAML, widen the window to 800, paste in a text block and a list box. The text box says hello. The list box will hold a scrolling list of messages here in the center where we'll print messages as if to a console window. We save it, then we go over and open the code behind. Rather than watch me type, I'm going to paste in the code behind and walk you through it. There's nothing code first about this UI. If the UI were in its own project, there'd be no Entity Framework library references. It's just everyday DevForce client-side programming. We've removed the unused usings, leaving only the 4 that are actually required. Here's our constructor. There's the loaded event, and we're going to handle that loaded event with a main window loaded method. That main window loaded does just 3 things. First, it sets our manager property with a new instance of the entity manager, which connects to the server and to the database. Second, it creates some new data and saves that data to the database. And third, we query the test data back and display it in the UI. Here's that manager property. Here's add test data. And at the top here, we're creating a new category and we're adding it to our manager. Then we're creating 2 new products and we're adding them to that category's products collection. Now the act of adding it to that collection pulls these new products into the cache and associates them with that category automatically. Then we're going to save. We'll see how to do that in a second. And when we're done saving and everything happens just right, we'll clear the cache. We're clearing the cache because we want it to be absolutely clean when we test our ability to query. Here's the save method. First we log the fact that we're trying, then we try and save. If we fail, then we'll log how we failed and the application will be over. Assuming that it succeeded, we are now ready to query that test data back. We ask the manager to fetch all the products. The include brings in their parent categories at the same time in the same trip to the server. ToList executes the query. We're in WPF, so we can do this synchronously. We set the default query strategy to cache only for test purposes. We want to make sure that the include works. The cache only prevents any lazy loading. Finally, we iterate over the products retrieved from the database, logging each one. Logging is pretty simple. We first push the message to the console. This could be a console app instead of a WPF app. And then we add the message to the messages list box on screen, which you may remember is this big area right here. Log product builds a string representation of a product entity using a format string. We'll show the product ID, the name, its entity state, added, modified, deleted, or unchanged. It had better be unchanged. Then the parent category, its ID and name. Notice that in that last step, it navigates from product to category. That's where the eager loading with the include should show up. Finally, we log the formatted product string. Time to see if it works. Let's build and run. And we're off to the races. Now, in the real world, you're going to evolve your application, your model, and your database. In part 2, we'll pick up where we left off here, add a new entity type, and learn some new tricks. The second link on your screen will lead you to that part 2. Thanks for watching, and have a great time out there writing your Code First app.